I have a question for all of the monosexual folks in the audience, those of us who are only attracted to one gender. How would you feel if your partner told you that they were not the gender that you were initially attracted to? I've actually had several people that I've dated come out to me as transgender, and I've had different various reactions to it over the years. But I know that in my current relationships, it would be very, very, very hard for me personally to maintain my attraction to somebody after they've transitioned. Because I love them, I would obviously want to be their best friend, but it would still be something that would make me want to disconnect romantically and sexually from my partner. I am cursed to only be attracted to men. Apparently God does make mistakes. I could have definitely been a lot gayer. I ask you that question because this is the exact situation that a couple on 90 Day Fiancé Love in Paradise is currently in. Shawn and Aaliyah are a couple that have been together for a very long time. And when Shawn initially met Aaliyah, she was Douglas. And he was initially attracted to Douglas because he was shy and timid and didn't necessarily have a lot of confidence about himself. And then, like a lot of people, her egg cracked during the pandemic, and now she has embraced a persona that only used to occasionally come out named Aaliyah. Now, in comparison to Douglas, Aaliyah is far more confident, far more willing to say what she wants, far more willing to claim what she needs. And she's obviously a lot happier. And while Shawn definitely feels a certain way about that, he's ultimately concerned for the same reasons I would be concerned if one of my partners came out to me as a trans person. Will he be able to maintain his attraction to his longtime partner who no longer is the gender that he was initially attracted to? And so in this video, I wanted to talk about my many thoughts and feelings about this particular couple on 90 Day Fiancé Love in Paradise. Hi, my name is katblaque, and this is Movies in My Closet. Now, I have a lot to say about this couple because I feel like so many aspects of their relationship remind me of some of the experiences I had when I was a baby trans girl. I have historically always dated older men. I mean, most of my partners are at least 10 years older than me. And, you know, yes, I have daddy issues, but you know, the median age of the men that I tend to date hasn't really changed since I was young enough to not be dating men as old as my current partners. And so I guess when I was looking at their relationship, it became pretty clear to me that Shawn enjoys the power imbalance between himself as a 61-year-old man and Aaliyah, who is 25. Now, the reason why I had that reaction, I've said this in a few different videos, but I am 33 years old. I turned 34 this year. And because of the work that I do, I'm pretty regularly in conversation with people who are in their 20s. And obviously, people in their 20s are adults, right? They are complete adults, and I don't want to belittle them. But for me, at my age, and maybe because I'm so used to dating men who are much older than me, a 25-year-old looks like a child to me. And so I can only imagine how I would feel about that when I'm 61 and looking at somebody who's 25. If a 25-year-old man were to walk up to me right now at my age of 33, I would feel kind of weird about it. I would really feel kind of weird about it for so many different reasons. I mean, yes, my position is different than Shawn's, right? But still, I would not really want to date somebody that young because we would probably not have a ton in common, right? And it's pretty clear to me that Shawn is enjoying having that power differential in their relationship. Like I mentioned, Douglas was a little bit different from Aaliyah. And one of the things that Shawn mentions early on is that he hasn't really been too fond of this new sort of confidence that Aaliyah has as an openly transgender woman. Shawn is a hairstylist. He does celebrity hairstyling, and he is very good at hair and has often enjoyed putting Aaliyah together when they go out. And Aaliyah in the before times was this sort of escapism character that Douglas had, right? And so Shawn, especially because they're in a long distance relationship, hasn't really spent a lot of time sharing space with Aaliyah. He is the most familiar with Douglas, who back when they last saw each other only took Aaliyah out as a sort of persona within certain contexts. And so a lot of their relationship hinges on Shawn being able to, as he continues to say, see Douglas in Aaliyah. And it's pretty clear that Aaliyah does not want to hold on to that, right? Aaliyah actually holds like a ceremony for essentially getting rid of Douglas. And even after that, Shawn is still wanting to see Douglas in Aaliyah. In fact, he has a lot of anxiety around the idea of Aaliyah having plastic surgery that would make her more feminine in a way that would no longer be attractive to him. You know, even though Shawn has not labeled his sexuality, seeing the way that he navigates around Aaliyah reminds me of a lot of the experiences that I've had when trying to navigate relationships with men who identify as bisexual. There are a lot of bisexual men who, frankly, are only attracted to cis people, right? When they're attracted to men, they're attracted to men. They want those men to be masculine. They want those men to be cis. When they're attracted to women, they're attracted to women. They want those women to be feminine and they want them to be cis, right? And some people, because of the way that their sexuality works, right, they have a hard time even imagining transgender people in a sexual way. One of my bi friends explained that to me, that like when he closes his eyes and fantasizes about a woman, it's never a transgender woman. It's always a cis woman. And while obviously there are people who identify as bi and feel very differently, I think that it's pretty common for people who identify as bisexual to have a different type in men, a different type in women. It's pretty obvious to me that Shawn is attracted to Douglas, and even though they haven't really said this, this is the vibe that I get, and I wonder if other people sort of feel this way. I get the impression that in the before times, Aaliyah and Shawn may have been in somewhat of a daddy-son type relationship, right? Where he's the older dude, the daddy who takes care of everything, and he's the son who just gets to be young and have fun and be cute and be sexy and available to him, right? And there's a lot of gay men who are in relationships like that. I mean, there's a lot of people of all genders who are in relationships like that. I have a few daddies, actually. That's another video. I get that impression because there's a point in their episodes where he mentions that one of the reasons that he is taking issue with being intimate with her is because of her attitude, I suppose, and because she's not being as submissive as he would like for her to be, right? And the thing that I hate watching this, and maybe we just haven't seen everything, right? Like maybe it's been edited a certain way. They flash a bunch of different scenes when he says this, and pretty much every scene that he's describing as her being like forceful, pushy, and diva-like is literally just her saying, I am a trans woman. This is who I am. It is not changing, right? And I empathize with Shawn feeling a bit like this is a curveball for him, right? Like he was very in love with someone who she is now saying no longer exists. And the reason why he's maintaining that relationship is because he's still attracted to that person or believes that that person will come out in some way. And yeah, that probably is rough for him. And so I think for him, he may be hearing it more harshly than it actually is, right? I personally think that relationships like this don't really work out. I'm saying that though, and I don't think I've ever really talked about this because, you know, this is something that I still don't fully understand. And so, let me know how y'all feel about this in the comment box below. But I have met some transgender women who very much identify with the gay male community. And some of them will date men who identify as gay. I've also met more than just a few gay men who identify as gay men who will occasionally sleep with women, right? Some of those women being trans, some of those women being cis, right? And for some of these people, the reason they feel this way isn't like biphobia, which is the default example. Yes, you could argue that. But really what it boils down to more so is that they just feel that those labels that they're using are the ones that feel the closest and most true to them, right? They don't feel bisexual enough to really call themselves bisexual, right? And I find myself fascinated by this as somebody who doesn't feel that way. You know, I've never dated a gay man or had a gay man be attracted to me, right? And I'm also becoming more and more aware of the fact that I am very much LGBT, but not queer. Does that make any sense? In my own sensibilities and my own way of moving through the world, even though people can project queerness onto me, and even though queer as a political label is something that I will definitely embrace, like culturally, I'm pretty heterosexual. I wrote about that on my website, Black in the Cities. Check out that on my website. But anyway, I'm realizing that I have different sensibilities, I have different ways. And I think because I don't identify as queer, something like dating a gay man is very like far from something that I would ever do, right? And I think if I didn't have knowledge of that, I would probably look at this relationship and say, I think this relationship should break apart, break up, right? Because to me, it doesn't make sense, right? Like Shawn very obviously wants to date Douglas, right? Shawn very obviously appreciates Aaliyah as like an idea, but he doesn't actually want to date Aaliyah. He's not actually like actively attracted to Aaliyah. He appreciates Aaliyah as a creation of Douglas, but he's ultimately wanting to be with Douglas. And I think that a relationship like that is destined to fail, right? It's destined to be aggravating for her and aggravating for him, right? Now I'm filling in blanks where there may be none. Like I said, Shawn doesn't label his sexuality. It seems from what he's said on the show that he's only maintained sexual relationships with men since his divorce. So I think he's one of these people who would probably be more considered to be culturally gay, culturally queer, even though he is attracted to women. And it's also just very possible that when he's attracted to women, he's not attracted to women like Aaliyah, right? Some trans people end up getting into this position where they're in a relationship with somebody who likes them and appreciates them and celebrates them, but sees their like little weird gender thing as like something that they just let them do. Do you know what I mean? I've seen this a lot with trans masc folks who are in relationships with heterosexual men before they come out as trans men, right? Where so much of the relationship is, relating to whether or not the trans masculine person is going to essentially give up a part of their identity in order to satisfy the attractions of their partner, right? So often what this looks like is someone not taking testosterone because it would make their partner uncomfortable, and it would force their partner to question their sexuality, right? And I just know from observing some of those relationships in my life that like that shit sucks, right? No one wants to be there. Aaliyah wants to have surgery to change her body to become more feminine. Shawn has anxiety around the idea of her changing her body and becoming more feminine. So very obviously, what she wants in life is going to be the thing that disconnects Shawn from her. And the thing I keep thinking about when I watch this is that Shawn is 61 years old, right? I think Shawn may feel the way that some people on the show have felt in the past, that they're never going to be in a situation ever again where they have somebody young who's attracted to them, who wants to be in a relationship with them. I definitely don't think that's the case with Shawn. I think Shawn, for being a 61-year-old man, looks quite good, right? I think that he can definitely find people, right? And I guess that's why I also don't get it. But also, because Shawn isn't monosexual, because Shawn isn't only attracted to men, even if he's been predominantly with them, I think there might be a part of him that will be able to work it out. But as it stands right now, it just seems like it's not going to work because he doesn't want her to be who she wants to be. Now, another subject in this show is the subject of non-monogamy. Because, of course, because they're in a long-distance relationship, there was a conversation about non-monogamy, but the conversation didn't really happen until things were discovered, right? Aaliyah discovered dating apps on Shawn's phone, and she had feelings about it. And that's when he decided to share with her that they've apparently been non-monogamous the entire time. Now, this is something that shifted my opinion about Shawn pretty greatly. Watching the show, you kind of do feel empathetic towards Shawn. You feel like Shawn is trying to do his best in a tough situation. But then something like that sort of seems a bit off. It seems a bit inconsistent with the person that he's trying to project on the show, right? Because if you were this good person who is just trying to, do your best by a person, you would tell them if you were actively in relationships with other people back home. You would tell them if you've been having sex with other people. Now, of course, you could maybe say that there was no reason to assume that there would be monogamy, right? But how do you go from that to proposing to somebody? That's the thing that always baffles me about 90 Day Fiancé. I'll never get it. Half of these people are getting married in situations where they should not be getting married, right? This is absolutely nonsensical. Don't get married if you aren't sure you actually like each other. But, anyway, I get that the marriage is part of bringing somebody to America. It just doesn't really make a ton of sense to me to want to make that serious of a decision just because you think somebody's hot and young. I don't know. I feel like there's easier ways, but anyway. So on Shawn's visit to Brazil, Aaliyah confronts him about it. She's like, hey, what's our situation going to be? And they land on this decision that once Aaliyah goes to the United States, they are going to be in a monogamous relationship, because really, in Shawn's, words, because his love language is touch and he doesn't want to be alone and they're in a long distance relationship, that's why they are, doing this thing. By the way, love languages are bullshit. Love languages are bullshit. It was created by a man who wanted to convince his wife that his love language was acts of service. So, it's good framework, right? It's a good framework to communicate how you express love to other people. I think but I want to remind people that Shawn is using, my love languages in the same exact original context in which the love language was created, because it's really just a ploy to teach your partner, who is usually lower than you, more submissive than you, etc., what you need in a relationship so that they can service it for you. So, it's good framework or whatever, but my love language is touch, and that's why I didn't tell you about the people that I was sleeping with is bullshit. It's bullshit. We totally different situation if it was a conversation that he had, but to just sort of assume, no. But anyway, so they land on that decision that they're going to be monogamous once they actually are living with each other and married to each other in the United States. But Shawn is currently sleeping with one of his ex-boyfriends. And even though they've agreed that they're never going to be in a relationship and it's never going to turn into that whole thing, he still wants to hold on to that relationship. Aaliyah, she makes a rule, or tries to make a rule, but gets stampeded by saying that if you are going to be sleeping with other people, you need to make sure that it's essentially someone I don't know and will never have to sit next to at a dinner table, right? And Shawn doesn't want to do that, right? Shawn doesn't want to get rid of people in his life. And I understand that. I really do. I mean, I would hate it if my partners were like, you need to, disconnect from every man who's ever had a relationship with you. That's kind of what my ex did, frankly. I lost all of my male friendships when I got into that relationship, pretty much. Some people who are very insecure will require that of you, and I don't necessarily think that that's correct. But I also think that Shawn has established himself as somebody who's not exactly honest, and I know that for Aaliyah, it's going to be a source of anxiety, the fact that he has very openly expressed several times over that he's not sure if he's fully attracted to her as a feminine person, while he's maintaining a relationship with somebody who is masculine, somebody who is more attractive to him, right? Obviously, it's going to be issues. I personally think that there's just a lot wrong with this relationship, from the age gap to the different goals to what frankly feels like desperation on Shawn's end. It's pretty clear to me that this isn't going to work, right? This is not a relationship that I think will last or thrive. And I think that if it does continue going on, it'll only be with a lot of drama, lots of argument, and lots of seceding space. And there's a scene where Aaliyah's friend, who I honestly think is a plant from 90 Day Fiancé, but whatever, is standing up for her, is saying, hey, what's your plan? Saying to her, like, hey, it's kind of weird that he prefers when you were shy, right? It's kind of weird that he likes you when you are not confident, right? And she brings up a lot of really important things, like if something happens to Shawn, what's going to happen to Aaliyah, right? And Shawn is very defensive and very, very spiteful towards her. And to some degree, I get it, right? Like, he doesn't want to think about his death. He's very clearly somebody who has that on his mind a lot. He doesn't want to think about that while he's on vacation in Brazil with a young person who he's trying to siphon youth from, right? So I get why he sort of has this reaction, but at the same time, red flag, because all of these questions are very, very, very reasonable questions. And that bothered me. The fact that Shawn had that reaction to her very reasonable questions about what's going to happen if Aaliyah moves to the United States, right? There's some very valid things that Aaliyah should be prepared for before she arrives in the United States. And perhaps Shawn ends up in a situation where Aaliyah is in a questionable position in the States, right? Like, I think it's important for her to know that stuff. And even though I got it partially, I think there's something a bit more to his reaction. I think a lot of times when much older people go after much younger people, they are not really crazy about their friends who are trying to like say something about it, right? And I have 100% been that person who warns the younger person that guy's not good news, right? I think it says a lot when someone is trying to alienate you from your friends. I think it says a lot when you're trying to make it harder for your friends to be protective of them. Yes, sometimes friends get into shit. Sometimes they don't need to be involved in everything, right? But the questions that she asked and the questions that Aaliyah asked were all very reasonable. None of those questions were crazy out of none of those questions were out of order. They were all very reasonable. What is actually going to happen if XYZ happens, right? I just think it's like lots of red flags, lots and lots of red flags. And I don't really get this relationship, right? I think when you're in a situation like this, it is hard to decouple if that's the way that you feel. I've seen more than just a few people go through something like this where someone transitions and then the state of the relationship changes. It's not something that's easy. And I understand being in love with someone and not wanting to decouple from them, right? I really do. I mean, if one of my partners came out, it would be hard, right? And it would be easy for me to say, boo-hoo, poor me, because something is drastically changing in my life and I'm supposed to be happy for it, even if it's something that shifts my life drastically, right? And I think maybe those are some of the feelings that Shawn is processing, that like he was in love with someone. He had this guy lined up he was really interested in being with, who was Brazilian and fulfilled this very particular thing for him. And now that person's changing and he's 61 years old and there's only so many years left. And is he going to find that again? He's already put so much time into this person. Maybe because he loves her, he's going to be willing to try, right? And if it ends, it ends, right? At least you tried, right? But what's clear to me is that the change Aaliyah's going through is seismic. And I think it really says something that Shawn was more attracted to her when she was less sure of herself, when she didn't feel fully confident in her body, when she didn't feel like she was being herself, right? And I get it, because I feel like when you are that sort of sad pre-transition person, there's a certain type of caretaking sort of person that may gravitate towards you, who may want to provide things for you so that you can be appreciative of them. And it's clear that Shawn is kind of doing that, right? Shawn is providing a lot of things for Aaliyah and making her feel embraced. And I know that that's a high that he's chasing, right? He likes the fact that he can just throw money at this younger person and they will be thankful and grateful, especially because they're from a poorer country, right? Especially for that reason. Shawn is even more overt than most people on the show about the fact that his predominant attraction is based in this power differential. You know, he made a point of saying that I'm willing to overlook the persona of Aaliyah if you are completely submissive and loving to me. Right? Which to him means don't stand up for yourself. Don't question me. Don't be drama. Just be chill. Just be thankful. Just be appreciative for everything that I'm doing. And the thing about it is, you know, older men like this date younger people like this because younger people are usually a little bit less perceptive of the bullshit, right? Younger people are a little bit less likely to immediately understand that this is not okay, right? Like when it came to the non-monogamy stuff, Shawn was really quick to basically be like, yeah, no, that's reasonable. That is normal. It's normal for you to, you know, be not in a monogamous relationship. When you're younger, older people get away with shit like that. And I know that for the type of older person who goes after a younger person like this, the reason why they do that is because they won't get called out. They'll get called out by people who are their age, but a younger person usually doesn't know yet. Obviously, I hope this works out, and I hope that things go the way that both of these people want them to go ultimately. Whatever makes them happy. If they like it, I love it. One thing I did sort of appreciate about this that's sort of being indirectly expressed is that men who are attracted to men who are looking for men are not going to typically be interested in people like Aaliyah, right? For me, that has always been one of the most annoying assumptions, right? Like I said, apparently some trans girls date gay dudes. That's not my personal, experience with that at all. But clearly some people do, right? But the average man who's looking for men is not going to be interested in a transgender woman purely because they may share anatomy, right? Like that's not really common, I don't think. Anyway, I'm so curious what you guys have to say about this couple on 90 Day Fiancé, Love in Paradise. I would love to hear how you would navigate this, if you have navigated this at all, what you would do if you were in this situation, and how you feel about age gap relationships like this. Because obviously I have thoughts, but I'm very curious about yours. Anyway, on that note, you guys can check out my Patreon where I upload all of my content ahead of time. There should be some comments under this video that were posted early ahead of time because I posted this video first to Patreon. Patreon is always where my videos go up first before they go anywhere else. And there is a $3 audio only tier for people who, don't have quite as much money but still want early access. That's usually the best way to get my stuff really, really early, the $3 audio only tier, because that's something that I do in my editing process. And then for my $5 members, you will get access to the actual videos that go live on YouTube. So yeah, if you are interested in supporting me, I really appreciate it right now. All of my $20 members become my producers. You should be seeing some names right below me right now of some awesome people who have decided to continue supporting the katblaque Productions crew over here. And I'm so thankful to all of my Patreon members for becoming part of my little community and supporting the things that I'm doing over here. Anyway, on that note, I will talk to you guys next time. As per usual, give me your suggestions for new TV shows and films. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. Until next time, bye.